Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Art of MMA. I'm Mike Ginn. That's professional kickboxer, the mechanic Brandon Catino. Of course, he's in action May 20th, so make sure you tune in for that. Zach Kelly is the next victim if you haven't been paying attention, or I guess next victim coming back around. Yeah. Anyway, you know the story. Pay attention to the mechanic on social media. You already know, but Gut Check Promotions, he'll be back in action. This week on Art of MMA, episode 106, we will be talking about UFC 287, Israel Adesanya back on top of the middleweight throne, everything that happened there, Jorge Masvidal's retirement and all that good stuff. And then we'll be taking a look at Lyoto Machida, as well as finishing up with what's going on with Kayla Harrison in the PFL. Of course, before we get to all that, support the mechanic, support his fight coming up. Check out fightersfirst.shop. Get all the officially licensed merchandise from MMA, kickboxing, boxing, professional wrestling. Let our apparel be a part of your story, of course. Today, Brandon's rocking the Art of MMA shirt. I got one of the Dynamite Kid shirts on today. So go ahead and check out fightersfirst.shop. Brandon, how you feeling today? How's training going?
Feeling good, man. Training's going real well. I'm really excited.
Awesome. Definitely looking forward to you finally getting your hands on Zach Kelly. It's been a long time waiting for that fight since the last time. So this time everything's good to go. So we're looking forward to that on May 20th. So make sure you guys tune in to watch the mechanic do what he does best, because this is not it. This is not it. I'm the king of this domain. Anyway, Brandon, let's go ahead and jump into the show. Got a lot to talk about today. UFC 287, Israel Adesanya, Alex Pereira. In MMA, it's number 2. Overall, it's number 4. Of course, we know the long storied history between the two. Last time they matched up, started off going a little bit back and forth, and then Izzy kind of took control from like rounds 3, 4, going into the 5th before he got caught and finished in the 5th round. This time did not last as long. Second round KO from Izzy. Alex was looking good early, but then Izzy with just an absolutely perfect counter punch. What did you make out of this fight?
Yeah, man, it was a good fight. Like I said, two high-level strikers going on over here, so you got to make sure you're paying attention to the little nuances of here. And like I say, like Izzy and his team, they made some changes, and it worked out for them. Like if you guys noticed in the first fight when they fought, usually like when Pereira would try to get close, Izzy wasn't trying to have any of it. He was trying to use the clinch, try to go for a tie-up, but it really wasn't working. Like he wasn't really able to get a takedown as well. This time, what he decided to do was right, because Alex Pereira is hard to hit if you kind of just try to let him be at range. This way, you kind of let him be committed to throwing his punches, and that's why you saw Izzy kind of have his hands up, and then that's when that's when somebody's committed to hit, that's when it's easier for you to hit them. And as you can see, he timed it pretty well, and he got that right hand off.
Yeah, I wish Izzy had never said the magic words in the post-fight interview that he was playing possum, because I feel like if you let a fighter kind of dictate what actually happened, become the narrative, and the announcers kept rolling with it, people are like, oh, he was playing possum. He was playing with him. Look, first of all, Henry Cejudo said it too. He wasn't playing possum. Look, Pereira was on the attack, and Israel Adesanya is a smart dude. He knows when, like you said, when Pereira commits, right? Pereira was committed. Pereira hit that knee. He hit that right. He left himself wide open because his hands were down. And Izzy, I don't agree with Henry Cejudo. It was definitely not a Hail Mary. Izzy threw the perfect counterpunch. I mean, you're talking about one of the fastest, best strikers in all of mixed martial arts or all of combat sports. You don't give Israel Adesanya an opening. And he caught him for the first time, followed it up with a perfect shot right to the temple that, honestly, if you looked at the second shot that actually is the one that put him down, you didn't even think it barely even hit him. But if you watch the replay, you can just watch his hand just literally ricochet off his temple in slow motion. It was so fast. And that's the one that put Pereira out. The hammer fist was just for good measure. I hate that Izzy said he was playing possum. He was definitely not playing possum. Alex was on the attack, and you don't play possum by taking a knee to the face or a right hook. I will give Izzy credit for this one. I don't know if it's possible to get better at taking punches, but he caught that left. Like Alex caught that devastating left hook that he has in the first round, and Izzy just took it like it didn't even happen. Like I saw him when Alex was flurrying in the first round. catch Izzy, and Izzy didn't even blink when he got hit with that left hook, and I was like, that puts people in coffins. Like, that's Alex Pereira's punch. But that said, look, I want to give Izzy perfect credit for one of the best counter punches you've ever seen in the sport. He was under attack, and he threw an absolutely perfect shot. And that's not like, I don't even like, you think you have to talk about playing possum. You can talk about rope-a-dope, playing possum, whatever you want. The truth is, it was just a perfect shot, and it wasn't an accident. There's no accidents in fighting. You either get hit or you don't. And let's be real, Israel Adesanya is one of the best in the sport, and you gave him an opening, and he took advantage of it. That said, the aftermath of this fight might be more interesting than the actual fight, Brandon, because Izzy seems like he's been redeemed. He feels like he's done with this entire chapter. He's ready to roll on. Alex is, maybe I go up to 205, maybe I don't, because he almost, when you heard his comments the day after, he's almost like, I'm not a quitter. I don't give up. Dana, for his part, is ready to move on and move Alex up to 205, whether Alex wants to or not. And then you got the Battle of Africa kind of drumming up interest with Driscus. I'll throw a couple names out there to say what's next for Izzy for you, Brandon. One, Jan Blachowicz, of all people, said he wants to drop to middleweight to fight Izzy. There's obviously Hamzat, who personally I think he needs to at least win a couple fights in 185 before he starts challenging for a title there. What is next for Israel Adesanya?
To be honest with you, man, I really don't know. Like it's either, to me, Duplessis.
He's already beat the whole top five.
Yeah. I mean, it's either you go with Hamzat or you go with Duplessis. Those are really the only two people, because Hamzat is a money fight. You know, he's a star. You know, the only thing with him is what's his visa status, because anytime you talk about a fight with him, it's nothing here. It's nothing here in the USA. It's always over in like Abu Dhabi. So it's not like they could be Hamzat and Izzy at International Fight Week. You know, if they're looking for a main event there or like anything over the summer, you know, and that's why, to me, Duplessis could be the guy, because, hey man, you look at Jamal Hill. He was ranked number 7 in the light heavyweight division. He got a title shot. You know, Duplessis is like right around there as well. Like I said, Izzy has already like cleaned out the middleweight division. So, you know, who else is really for him?
I mean, that's why I don't see anybody but Alex Pereira. Look, Izzy is, I mean, whether you want to say that he got robbed in the first kickboxing fight or whatever the case is, on paper, statistical records, Izzy's 1-3 against Alex Pereira. 1-1 in mixed martial arts. There's nobody in the middleweight division that's touched Israel Adesanya except for Alex Pereira. They've both stopped each other. There is still a story. I know they're both, Izzy doesn't want to fight the same person 3 times in a row, and Dana's ready to move on. But I don't see anybody else in that division. He's already beat Whitaker twice. He's already beat Vettori twice. He beat Cannonier pretty clearly. He destroyed Paulo Costa. Mm-hmm. Duplessis doesn't sell pay-per-views. And honestly, I don't think Duplessis has the gas tank to go with the Israel Adesanya. I just don't see anybody but Alex Pereira. And you're talking about finishing the story, kind of. Izzy might want to move on, but the truth is, he's still on the losing end of that story. He's still on the back end of that story, and they're 1-1 in MMA, and there's nobody else in the middleweight division that drums up the interest in a fight, except maybe Hamzat, but Hamzat hasn't earned it yet. He fought most of his fights at 170. We know Whitaker came close last time, but he's already lost to him twice. Vettori talks a lot of shit, but we know he's not in the same class as Izzy after that last fight. You go down the list, people forget. People always want to say Alex Pereira jumped the line last time, right? Well, 2 things. One, Adesanya called him out. Like, that's first and foremost. Adesanya said, let's just stop playing with us. Like, oh, he'll go beat a few people and then come fight me. Let's just go ahead and do it. And 2, people forget the guy that was supposed to be next in the middleweight division was Sean Strickland. He was the one running through everybody. And Pereira put him in a body bag. And that's how that fight happened. He took out the number one contender, the next guy that was supposed to be up. So I don't see anybody but Alex Pereira. And if it is anybody else, I mean, I guess it has to be Duplessis, but that fight just doesn't move the needle for me, Brandon. What do you think's next for Alex Pereira? Do you think it's a shot at Izzy? You think it's 205? What do you think?
I say he moves up to he moves up to 205 because also too the thing is one of the things that you're not mentioning is also too it took Alex to make 185 is tough for him. Like this time around, he basically weighed in until like the last hour, you know. So I'm saying I think 205 would be a lot easier for him because remember and when he was kickboxing and Glory Kickboxing, the weight limit was actually 187, not 185. And remember, for a title fight, you got to be 185. No exception. You don't get that pound. And then also, so to me, 205 is where it's at. You know, you kind of do have that story with Jamal Hill beating, you know, his mentor, his coach, Glover. You know, so I mean, he could slide right in there, or you know, he can go up and he can have some fun fights at 205 with like a Ozdemir. You know,
I think him and Rakic would be a fun fight.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, Rakic has to heal up first, or at least him versus Johnny Walker, you know, could be something.
Well, I mean, let's be real. Because he got knocked out, he has at least a 60-day suspension, right? So, like, Alex is not going to be back in the cage for a couple months anyway, regardless of this being a quick fight. The rules, if you get knocked out, there's no contact for 30 days, then you have to have training. So at least 60 days before we ever see Alex Pereira again, probably longer than that because of the way they fight. I mean, there's a lot of fights in 205. There's still some fights. I mean, he hasn't fought that much in the UFC. So there's fights in both divisions that are exciting if you want Alex to go back, prove himself, win a fight. There's been talks of Hamzat versus Robert Whitaker to kind of do a number one contender. But you have somebody like Jared Cannonier, who's, you know, kickboxing background would be a good matchup for Pereira. You have somebody like Vettori who loves to, you know, drum up interest in a fight. You know, he's got a little bit of Conor McGregor in him where he loves to just talk shit. So there's interest in any fights what you go. I just think the problem is Adesanya has already looped that division. Like he looped it before that's why Alex got that shot so quickly, because there was nobody else then. There's nobody else now. And if Adesanya wants to stay active, I mean, he's already started trying to talk up the whole Battle of Africa thing, but they're not going to have a UFC in Africa anytime soon that I know about. So I don't know. Like their schedule's pretty much set, I think, through the summer. So we'll see. What's up with that one? Co-main event made some interesting news. I have so much appreciation for fighters that give their careers and have long careers like Jorge Masvidal and stuff like that. But I hate that they kind of take the spotlight away from the winner in some of these fights when they retire. Like I'd rather they retire in a press conference or retire backstage. If they want to leave their gloves down and walk away, that's cool. But it really takes away from the fact that Gilbert Burns kind of dominated Jorge Masvidal. Like the first round was very back and forth, very close round. You could even have gave him Masvidal the first round. The second and third round, once Gilbert started taking him down and doing what he wanted to do, was all Gilbert Burns. Before we get to the retirement, what did you think of the fight?
Yeah, man, you know, Gilbert Burns went out there and did what he had to do. You know, he got the W, you know, so it just adds on for him. But like I said, you know, he controlled Masvidal in rounds 2 and 3, you know, got him down. And that was it, you know. I mean, say Masvidal's a tough guy, you know, he's hard to finish. So that's why he was able to, survive.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. Masvidal's not what he used to be, but coming into probably maybe the first Usman fight before he started kind of slowing down a little bit, one of the best takedown defenses in all of MMA. Like we always say, you don't have to be a good wrestler or a good jiu-jitsu guy, but you better have damn good defense to keep from getting put in those positions. Adesanya is the perfect example. Like it's very hard to take Izzy down. Like you have to be a really good wrestler like Jan was or somebody else to kind of take him down because he knows. I see Michael Venom Page a lot in Bellator. Same thing, striker. It's not that easy to take him down because he knows he's not in his world when he's on the ground. Masvidal, first of all, we see Masvidal. We saw it with Covington. We saw it with Usman. When he's on the ground, he tries to get back up. But the truth is, if you tie him up like Colby did, he's a fish out of water. He just sit there and try to ride out the round because he doesn't, like, you know, he got up a lot faster this fight because I don't think Gilbert Burns is really good at holding people down. I've seen it with the Hamzat fight. I've seen it a few times. If he gets on top of you, he's looking for the submission. He's looking for different things. He's not really trying to hold you down. He's trying to move. So Masvidal took advantage of that and got back up a couple times. And it was Masvidal knew it was his last fight, so he was trying to give everything he had. He was in his hometown in Miami. Storybook would have been a great ending, but Gilbert Burns is just on a different level, especially at this point in the career, a couple years younger, still kind of got that fire going. And Masvidal said he doesn't feel it anymore. I won't get into any of the political stuff after the fight that Masvidal ranted about. I wish he would have saved that for another day, because while I know a lot of people are on his side or against him, regardless, doesn't matter. I just don't think, you see a lot of people, especially with the NBA players, like they'd say leave politics out of sports. And I just think sometimes there's better platforms. I definitely think athletes deserve a voice, regardless of what your political stance is. But I don't think the event is the time to have the voice. I think, you have social media and 1,000 other platforms. You can clearly, do your voice. And I think it takes away from the fact that we should be celebrating Masvidal's career instead of talking about any comments he made afterwards. The guy spent 20 years, Brandon. Before we move on to some of this card, what's your favorite Masvidal moment?
Ben
Askren.
Probably does have be the Ben Askren flying knee. It was so quick.
Personally, I think the Darren Till one's a little better for me because Darren Till just talks so much, and him baptizing Darren Till. I think like the Ben Askren thing was cool, but it was so fast. It's kind of like it's just a highlight for MMA. I think what he did to Darren Till really kind of like catapulted the catchphrase baptizing people. Because I think that was the one that's like, oh, this is real. This is like he's on a new streak. Okay. And then kind of pushed him back up to the main event status. So got him that money. Jorge Masvidal, great career, 20 years, started in the streets, turned that into a legitimate career. So you can't hate on that. And Gilbert Burns, I think he's in a very tough position, Brandon. I think going, here he is at 155. He moved to 170, and then he got back up in the top 5. But now he's got a lot of people in front of him kind of waiting. He lost to Hamzat. I hate when somebody calls for a title shot and you really just lost your last fight. Like, he only won one, and that was against the aging Masvidal. I think he has to beat somebody else in that top 5 to get a title shot, personally.
Didn't he lose to Hamzat, and then he just beat Wonderboy Stephen Thompson and then Masvidal?
I'm not sure. I thought the Thompson fight was before Hamzat.
You got it.
But either
Wonderboy.
He beat Neil Magny. Hamzat he lost to Hamzat, beat Neil Magny, and beat Masvidal. He beat Thompson before Hamzat.
All right.
But still, Neil Magny and Jorge Masvidal, I don't think gets you a title shot.
But wait. But why does Colby Covington get a title shot off of Masvidal?
Well, first of all, I don't think he should. Like we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Like nobody in the MMA thinks Colby Covington deserves a title shot except Dana White and Colby Covington. Like we know why Colby Covington gets that title shot because of privilege. Tony Ferguson forever coined the greatest phrase in MMA is Dana White privilege, and now it's a thing, and we know it's a thing. We always knew it was a thing. And that's why Colby Covington's getting the shot. But we also know Bilal Muhammad deserves a shot. Another guy who said he's actually willing to go up to 185 if he can't get what he wants at 170. We know there's young killers like Hamzat and Rakhmonov that deserve opportunities. We know Covington wouldn't fight anybody but a title contender or a title fight at this point. Usman just fought twice for the title. And then that does leave Gilbert Burns at number 5. But like I said, you fight 2 aging fighters and a third one before the Hamzat fight, and those are your wins. And you lost pretty badly to Usman, right? Usman finished him. I don't know. I mean, Leon Edwards does open up a lot of new opportunities, especially if he does beat Colby. But I'd rather see Gilbert fight another young fighter like Rakhmonov or somebody else to get that shot. I don't know. What do you think is next for Gilbert Burns? Do you think it's the title shot?
No, because Colby's getting it. I mean, I think he is.
I mean, after the Colby Covington Leon Edwards fight.
I believe he is the backup for that title fight. So I guess
he's going to weigh in for it. Dana liked that idea. Yeah.
So usually, if you're the person that's the backup weighing, that usually means that you're getting the next title shot. So
that division's gotten turned upside down by having Leon on top now. Usman's kind of sitting there with nobody to fight. Maybe him and Burns run it back too if they want. But Burns wants to wait this time, so we'll see. Elsewhere on the card, Rob Font looked incredible against Yanez. It was fast and furious, rock'em sock'em robots, but he got the better of it with the cleaner striking. Kevin Holland fighting pretty much with one hand. Still has the hand damage from his last fight. Knocked out Ponzinibbio. Christian Rodriguez derailed the hype train of Rosas. Rosas looked good in the first round. Rodriguez weathered the storm, and then second and third round just wore him out and took over. Kevin Gastelum with a kind of a controversial win over Chris Curtis. I was surprised when the judge gave it 30-27 personally. But it was a very back and forth battle, just depending on how you look at it. Chris Curtis is actually appealing the decision. Nothing's probably going to come of that, but kind of interesting. Another close split decision. Pinheiro beat Michelle Watterson Gomez by split decision. Joe Pfeiffer with the big knockout over Gerald Machat. One that kind of surprised me, Brandon, was Lupita Godinez gotten the win over Cavillo, split decision. Cavillo's really fell off. Like she was almost a top contender, and she's just on a bad streak right now. Bahamotus got the win over Trey Ogden. Steve Garcia with the win. I'm not even going to try to say Shireland's last name, TKO. And then the one that's kind of making a little headlines I want to ask you about real quick, Sam Hughes with the upset win over Amorin. I don't know if it was an upset, but she admitted after her fight that her husband bet on her. With everything going on in the UFC with sports betting and James Krause, was that a smart move?
I mean, it's not like she's the one. I mean, she won, so it's not like she lost or anything like that. So, I mean, or it's not like he bet on her to lose. So,
he bet on her to win, but I still think it was something that she probably shouldn't have said out loud.
Oh, I mean,
FBI's already investigating the UFC right now.
I mean, well, no, because there was the one guy. I can't remember his name, but there was the one guy who had bet on himself to win the fight, and I think it was the last fight on his contract as well, and he lost both, and he's no longer in the UFC. I mean, as long as I don't think there's anything fishy when you're saying that you're betting on yourself to win.
I don't think there's anything bad about betting on yourself. I agree, but I do think with everything going on in the UFC, especially with the feds kind of investigating the entire promotion right now, I think that's something you just don't say at a press conference. I think you just leave it unsaid. If he wanted to do it, there's nothing illegal about it. If he had bet against her, I think that would have been a lot bigger story, and probably would be broken up right now. But Sam got the win. Before we move on, any other highlights on that card that really stood out to you besides the main and co-main?
Man, just the Rob Font and the Yanez fight. Like saying, I could have sworn. I remember. I think it was you that picked Adrian Yanez as the best boxer in the UFC. On that.
No, I said Peter Yan.
Okay.
Go back to me. I said Peter Yan was the best boxer. I might have said Yanez has really good boxing. I think Peter Yan was the best boxer in MMA.
Okay.
All right, go check the tape. I don't remember what episode it is. I can't tell you what episode we did that. That might even have been a Battleground episode, or was that actual Art of MMA?
No, I think it was a Battleground episode.
Yeah, go check the tape. It's still all the stuff still on the Fighters First Network. Go pull back the reel. I definitely said Peter Yan was number one, and then everybody else, kind of like Dustin Poirier and other people like that. But go ahead, get back on track about Rob Font.
That was a good bounce back one for Rob Font. Still letting us know, he is top 5 material, and we'll have to see what happens with him next. I think Adrian Yanez, he will bounce back from this and go from there.
I'm a big Adrian Yanez fan. I'm not going to deny that at all. I'm also a big Rob Font fan. Rob Font threw the cleaner punches. Adrian was kind of winging his wild punches, and a lot of times Adrian gets in these firefights and he comes out on top. This time he fought a guy who fights a lot like him, and Rob Font throws punches down the middle and Adrian's winging him. The punch down the middle is going to land first. That's pretty much what happened. I think Rob Font's just in a weird position because he's lost to some of the guys above him, and you're not going to get a fight with somebody like Sean O'Malley or somebody taking a chance, because O'Malley's waiting for the winner pretty much of, next month of Sterling and Cejudo. So it's a lot of kind of waiting around in that division unless you want to take another aging fight, either an aging fighter or an up and coming fighter. But Rob Font's fought so many people in that division. He's kind of stuck waiting just like everybody else. I will say one thing that kind of makes me sad is that we're not going to get a Kevin Holland, Jorge Masvidal fight. Though Kevin tweeted out the same thing, and I did respond to Kevin. I'm like, I just responded with a lot of dollar signs, because we know in MMA, if there's enough money on the table, that fight can still happen. It probably would have to happen in Miami, because I don't think Masvidal wants to end his career anywhere else. I think it was kind of a storybook for him to start in Miami. I mean, technically Fort Lauderdale is where his first pro fight was, and then finish in Miami, his home. So I don't think there's anything, unless it's a big money, I don't think it's going to happen anywhere else in Miami. And in that case, you're talking about next year sometime coming back, because it's been a while since they've even had a UFC in Miami. So that's that. UFC 287. Make sure you leave your comments. Let us know what you thought of everything. What's next for Izzy? Is it Duplessis? Is it somebody like Hamzat? It's him waiting until that's one of the things why I said Alex Pereira should be next also, Brandon, is because if you run it back one more time, you give the middleweight division a chance to develop a contender, because that's another 6 months, 9 months. Maybe there's a contender that kind of comes out of that. I don't think there is one right now.
Yeah. I mean, but that's if Alex can make the weight.
That's about, I mean, he's never missed it. I mean, let's be clear. He's struggled to make it, but he's never missed it. All right. Elsewhere, Lyoto Machida, the Dragon. He's fought out his Bellator contract, or he was released one way or another. He has lost his last 4 fights in Bellator, but all against, championship level fighters, except for the last one. His last win coming against Chael Sonnen back in 2019, of all days on my birthday. And then he lost to Musasi, Davis, Bader, and then Fabian Edwards actually knocked him out last May. Lyoto's 44 years old, Brandon. He wants one more fight to kind of finish his career on his terms. He's a free agent. I'll ask you kind of a 2-part question. Where would you like to see him finish his career? And is there any kind of opponent that kind of stands out to you as somebody he should probably fight?
I mean, it would be nice if he could get a Bellator, one more fight with Bellator, and maybe get a Yoel Romero fight, at either 185 or 205, because they both have fought there. That would be something. Or I don't know, man. Maybe he could be somebody who I mean, I'm sure he probably get a one fight with one, But I'm not sure where it is that he wants to end his career. Does he want to maybe end it in Brazil and he just does a local show in Brazil, or is he trying to end it in one of the big promotions?
That's kind of what I was thinking about too. I kind of thought about that a little bit on the side. Like, everybody's thinking immediately. You say that, you think one more fight in the UFC. You think somebody like one throwing a lot of money at him. PFL with the pay-per-view model coming up. But there's also promotions like Jungle Fights and other things that are big promotions down in Brazil, where you kind of go back to your roots and kind of finish up something like that. I could see that. There's 2 fights that kind of stand out to me as something that could happen. One, we know Anderson Silva's never quite done, right? So maybe him and Anderson fighting in either Bellator, UFC, one somewhere, Ryzen. Like, Ryzen loves to throw fights like that. That could be something. The other one I want to throw out to you is kind of a Hail Mary. I don't think it could happen, but that PFL later this year is going to be starting their pay-per-view model. Having a name like Lyoto Machida, regardless of his recent history, is still a selling point. You're trying to get as many big names on there. You're probably trying to get Francis Ngannou. You're probably trying to get Jake Paul later in this year. Jake Paul fights around the same weight class as Lyoto Machida. He needs a name to fight, and he's talking about the end of the year, beginning of the year, making his pro debut. He's also talking about doing another boxing fight before then. What would make more sense than having somebody who's not been the greatest fighter, but has a UFC championship on his resume, a top career type fighter at 185 and 205 in the same weight class. Might be a good opportunity for somebody like Jake Paul, who he doesn't have to worry trying to take him down. Machida's probably not going to try to take him down. That might be a good matchup for somebody like Jake Paul to make his debut. Is that crazy?
No, it's not. It's not crazy. I mean, it could. I want to say it does make sense. That's what Jake Paul wants to do. But we'll see. Like I said, I kind of thought he wasn't looking to make his MMA debut until next year, until 2024. But I mean, if he wants to maybe try to do it at the end of this year, that could be possible. But again, how long does Lyoto Machida want to wait? Is he trying to get this fight in now, or does he not mind waiting?
Yeah, I mean, that is the question. I mean, he's been out almost a year at this point, and he is 44. So, does he want to fight at 45, 46? I mean, he has a style that doesn't really age that much. Like, he could fight later in his career. I don't think he would really be that much different than fighting a couple years ago, other than maybe he's a little slower or couldn't take a punch as well. But you've seen Chael Sonnen fight like up in his career, Tito Ortiz and some of those guys. I could see it depending on the level of competition, right? Mm-hmm. That's the thing about Jake Paul. We know he's fought like older boxers and older, former UFC guys in boxing, except for Tommy Fury. He's probably not looking to fight a young up-and-coming MMA fighter. He probably wants somebody that he can just sell pay-per-views with. So, just something to throw out there. Let us know. What do you think should be for the Dragon? How should he end his career? I tend to say I think some fighters fight too long, but it's never really our call to tell them when to stop fighting. And truth is, look, I mean, Machida hasn't looked great recently, but he did go the distance with Ryan Bader, who is the current UFC or Bellator heavyweight champion. He did go the distance with a split decision against Mr. Wonderful Phil Davis, and he lost a split decision with Gegard Mousasi. Those are 3 of his last 4 fights. Yeah, he got knocked out against Fabian Edwards, but anybody can get caught. So I think Machida's slowing down, but if you look at the actual resume of what happened his last 4 fights, it's not really that evident, to be honest with you. Last topic of the day, Brandon, your favorite fighter, our favorite fighter, of course, Kayla Harrison. The reason I want to talk about Kayla is PFL 2 just happened last weekend. Another really good card, headlined by a main event where Larissa Pachenko won a unanimous decision against Julia Budd. It was actually first round seemed to be all Pachenko, but after that it was pretty competitive after that. But the reason I bring that up is because Kayla was kind of like on a remote satellite, right? And it got me thinking, like, she's somebody who likes to fight a few times a year. She said herself she's really itching to get back in there and kind of avenge her loss and kind of just get that offer back. She wants to fight again. But PFL paid her a lot of money to stay in PFL, match that Bellator contract that she got offered, and they want to save her for pay-per-view. Well, the only fight that makes sense on that roster is Larissa Pachenko, and she's in the current season. So you're not going to see that fight till at least the end of the year. And that's if something probably happens to Pachenko, because let's be real. I don't see Pachenko. I know Pachenko says she wants to fight her at the pay-per-view and she wants to be that person, but if she keeps winning, you're talking about 2 regular season fights, 2 playoff fights. That's 4 fights in a year already. I doubt she's going to book a 5th fight just to fight Kayla. And the only other name I could see out there is Cyborg in a super fight, because Cyborg is still a free agent. We talked about that with the whole Kat Zingano thing. But I feel like they're trying to put her on these broadcasts. They're trying to maximize using her however they can, because they're paying her millions of dollars to basically sit at home right now. What do you think what do you think PFL is going to do with Kayla Harrison?
Well, I mean, she only has 2 fights left on her deal. So
which is why she's also not in the season.
Yeah. So it's just like, yeah, you don't know what you're going to do with her. Like, say, everybody thought it should have been her and Pacheco to start the year, but PFL didn't go that way. To me, there's only really 2 names that you want to see her go up against, and that is Larissa Pacheco, and then of course there is there's still value on her name. I mean, she didn't look so great this past Friday, but you still want to see. Man, why can't I remember her name right now? I got her face.
Aspen Ladd.
There you go, Aspen Ladd. Those are the two names. Those are the two names that people would want to see Kayla go up against, but they're both in the tournament. So that's why you kind of just got her you got Kayla just sitting around, So again, do you try to get something going on with Cyborg, and that's one fight, or are you gonna do two fights with them,
Do you think it's a situation where they're probably just going to feed her a can? Like, so to speak, like that, just a fighter that she can beat just to make a pay-per-view debut and make it be like build her name back up.
I don't think so.
Because like you said, the people that you want to see the fights aren't available.
Yeah, I don't think they would do that, because to me you can't go back to that, like, because if you name somebody, then how is that going to get you excited to order the pay-per-view? So to me,
I don't think she's the headline of the pay-per-view at this point anyway, coming off the loss. Like the golden child, like mystique is gone now that she lost.
But then who's going to headline it?
Jake Paul. Honestly, I think Francis Ngannou is going to be the headliner when they can finally work that out. I think what has to happen for PFL is that they have to offer him more money than whatever boxing fight is out there. Because right now we're talking about Deontay Wilder kind of being the only option, because Fury's pretty much going to probably fight Joshua because the Usyk fight isn't happening. So now you got a lot of like, well, which one of those guys is basically going to destroy Francis? Because Francis is not a boxer. Look, Francis is a really good power puncher, but he's not a boxer. I would find it hard to put money on him in either one of those fights. Honestly, I think the best matchup for Francis might even be like somebody like a former champion like Andy Ruiz or something like that if he wants to jump into boxing. But if it's PFL, I think Francis Ngannou is the headliner. If they can get him under contract against any heavyweight, there's a number of guys sitting there who aren't going to make it past the first couple rounds of the tournament or the season. You got somebody like Matthias Scheffel, who just already got knocked out by Bruno, but he's a contender. He's been in the championship before, so he's a guy. Ante Delia. I know Verdum is no longer under contract, but that's somebody I'm sure they could bring back. There's a number of fighters that PFL could throw in there just for a headline to go with Francis Ngannou. But like I said, Kayla can sell pay-per-views, but it has to be against the right person. Yep. Otherwise, I think they put her in there to get her confidence back, put her in there to destroy somebody, whether it's a rematch with like a Jenna Fabian or somebody who's already lost in the season this year, like a Higashi or a Sobek or somebody that's not a big name, just somebody for Kayla to get that win and be like, oh, I'm the baddest woman on the planet, come get me, because that's what they do, right? Like it's the professional wrestling model. It's like have Goldberg beat a bunch of no-name people, and then all of a sudden he's a big name, right? That's what they did with Kayla for years. Her and Pachenko were always the matchup because they were always running through everybody except each other. And Kayla was running through her until she wasn't. And now the shine's off. Honestly, Pachenko wants Kayla back because she's only got one win over her. It's kind of like Izzy and Pereira. She wants more wins over her. She wants to get that offer back. She doesn't want somebody to say, oh, but she beat you 3 times. No, she wants that win. So there's a lot of fights left there. But I think with the season format and the pay-per-view format going on at the same time, I think it creates a problem. And I think you're just going to have to sit there and use Kayla week in and week out as like a commentator, but then all of a sudden you stop looking at her as a fighter. So I think that's a hard sell for the public when you're trying to get your first pay-per-view. Have they announced a date yet for that pay-per-view?
I mean, their second pay-per-view. I know their championship is usually a pay-per-view.
Well, last year was the first year they did the championship for pay-per-view, but I'm talking about just a standalone pay-per-view.
No, not that I know of.
Well, maybe it will be the championship. Maybe they'll redo it like that and then just have a couple marquee fights on the championship like they always do, and try to move that model. I think Francis Ngannou is going to be the big sell, which leaves Kayla kind of like just picking up the crumbs, I guess. It sucks because she was the golden child. We were talking about Amanda Nunes. We were talking about Cyborg. We were talking about all these power fights. But now she's got to get a win. Because Cyborg loses to Amanda is not a big deal because she has a resume already. Amanda drops to Juliana Pena, which, by the way, they're fighting the third one in Vancouver this summer. That's not a big deal because she already has the resume. Kayla didn't have the resume against a bunch of top fighters. She only won in PFL against fighters that most of us hadn't heard of. So she needs that name to cement her legacy. We know she's very accomplished in the world of judo and Olympics, but she needs that name in MMA to kind of get her going. That is that for this week, Brandon. Got your fight coming up on May 20th. We're all excited about that. Of course, head over to fightersfirst.shop, get the Mechanic collection, get the rest of the Fighters First collections. Brandon, any final words this week before we get out of here?
Yeah, guys, make sure you guys tune into the PFL this week. My teammate Shane Burgos, the main event, going up against last year's champion at 155, the Canadian Gangster. So it should be a good one. Hurricane Shane is looking sharp, so it should be an exciting one this Friday.
Well, you got that. Sadibou Sai's in action. You got Magomed Kamirov, a bunch of good people. Also, another fight I'm interested in this weekend, also Max Holloway and Arnold Allen over in the UFC. That's going to be a good one. And speaking of Shane, Billy Q and Edson Barboza are going in action as well. So a lot of good fights going on this weekend. Both promotions have really good cards. And then next week you got Bellator in action. So a lot going on. Of course, next week you'll also have Kicking It going on with Brandon and Tim back in action. We'll be back, as well as this week we also have Crossing Borders coming out as well. So a lot of stuff on the network. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Never miss an episode. We appreciate you tuning in. This is Art of MMA. I'm Mike Ginn. That's the Mechanic, Brandon Catino. We'll see y'all next week.